Okay, let's unpack this. For millions across Africa, football is, it's arguably the single most powerful source of national identity.
It really is. It's a unifying force that just cuts across cultural, linguistic lines in a way that, very few political institutions can.
And because that passion is so intense, the political stakes become just astronomical.
Exactly. National team performance, it stops being about sport. It becomes a direct proxy for the state's competence, its morale, even its legitimacy.
Right, so if the team wins, the government gets to bask in that glory.
But when they lose, someone has to pay.
And that is the perfect setup for our deep dive today. We're looking at a really dramatic and revealing case study. Gabon's government intervention after their elimination from the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations.
Right. And our mission here is to analyze the systems that this one event reveals. We're using an 8K report that details the government's response to, understand the dynamics, the language they use, and the governance failures that get exposed when a soccer match is suddenly treated like a national security crisis.
So let's start with the facts. Just what happened. The Gabon national team, the Panthers, had a really disappointing 2025 AFCON.
A huge disappointment. They were eliminated quickly, finished last in their group, didn't get a single win.
But it's the reaction that's the story here.
Yeah.
This wasn't some quiet internal review.
Not at all. According to the reporting, the country's interim sports minister, Simplice Desiré Mambula, went on national television almost immediately after they were knocked out.
And he announced three huge actions. First, the immediate suspension of the national team.
Indefinite. An open-ended suspension, effectively shutting the whole program down.
Second, the firing of the entire coaching staff.
And third, and this is where it gets really personal, they publicly named and effectively removed two key players from the squad, the veteran defender Bruno Ekwele Manga and the team captain Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
That scope is it's incredible. Suspending the whole program is one thing, but naming players is another level. And Aubameyang.
Yeah, that's the key detail. Aubameyang, their star player, had already gone back to his club, Marseille. He was injured.
So he wasn't even there.
He wasn't even there. His removal was purely symbolic. It proves this wasn't about professional necessity. It was 100% about political optics.
So it's about showing an angry public that you're doing something, anything, immediately.
It's performative outrage. A spectacular act designed to shift public frustration away from the government and squarely onto the shoulders of individual players.
Which points to that core tension. Right. Prioritizing the spectacle over any kind of sustainable professional strategy.
And that failure, that strategic failure, it comes from the very top. To really get this reaction, you have to look at where the criticism started.
And the source material shows that before the team had even played their final game, the president, Brice Oligui Nguema, was already publicly weighing in.
Which is such important context. You have to remember, Nguema seized power in a military coup in 2023.
Right, so any regime like that, one that comes to power unconstitutionally, is under immense pressure to establish some kind of popular legitimacy, and fast.
And when you don't have that democratic legitimacy, symbols are everything. And there are few symbols more powerful than the national football team.
The president's complaints, at first, were about a lack of method in the application of resources, sort of logistical things.
But the language shifted very quickly. He explicitly blamed what he called a worrying erosion of patriotic sentiment in the management of sporting affairs.
And that's the pivot. The failure is no longer technical, a bad coach, poor tactics. It's now a moral and political failure. It's a lack of patriotism.
It's a classic political move. If success validates your system, then failure has to be framed as a betrayal of the state itself. By accusing them of lacking patriotism, the government neatly sidesteps any actual review of, underfunding or institutional chaos.
And makes it all about loyalty.
Exactly. It becomes a loyalty test.
So listener check-in one. Think about this for a second. When a military leader who took power in a coup links poor sports performance directly to a lack of patriotism, what is the message he's sending? Not just to the players, but to the entire football federation.
It's not a suggestion for how to play better. It's a political threat. It creates this atmosphere of fear where, a missed penalty could be interpreted as disloyalty.
So let's run a hypothetical. Hypothetical example one. Imagine an official suggesting that a player's lack of effort in a big game wasn't fatigue, but ideological disloyalty to the national cause.
The political pressure would be immense. You'd have to publicly remove them, make a scapegoat out of them just to appease this angry crowd. That's the environment this kind of rhetoric creates.
Okay, so now here's where this narrative of swift, decisive action just completely falls apart.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. The aftermath of that big TV announcement showed a total breakdown. The source material confirms that the video clip of the minister's declaration,
The one announcing the suspension, the firings, everything.
it was later removed from the social media channels of the state broadcaster, Gabon Television.
So you just memory hold it. And on top of that, no official written statement was ever published on the government website to actually formalize the decision.
I mean, this is more than just a PR blunder. It's a sign of a government acting purely on impulse, a decision that big suspending your entire national team that should be official policy. The fact that it just vanished suggests the initial move was pure reaction.
Designed for that immediate public consumption.
Yes. And then someone, somewhere, realized it was maybe unsustainable or even illegal under international sporting rules.
Right, maybe they feared sanctions from FIFA or CAF.
Could be. The initial move was pure scapegoating. The retraction, or the deleting of the evidence, points to a serious lack of coordination. It just creates total chaos. Is the coach fired or not? Is the team suspended? Are Aubameyang and Manga out? Nobody knows.
Let's zoom out then and talk about the systemic costs of this kind of intervention. What's the real fallout here long term?
Well, the number one cost is the complete destruction of trust. You're dealing with professional athletes, many playing for top clubs in Europe where stability is everything.
And here's listener check-in too, and it's the uncomfortable part. How does a star player like Aubameyang, publicly shamed while he's injured and with his club, how does he view his commitment to the national team after that?
It completely changes the calculation for him. It goes from being a source of pride to a major professional risk. And these episodes, even when they're walked back, they absolutely discourage diaspora players from committing.
The players born or raised overseas.
Exactly. Why would you risk your club career, your reputation, your future contracts for a national system where you can be turned into a political pawn the second things go wrong?
And then there's the cost of development. You can't build anything long-term with this constant instability. Firing the whole coaching staff by political decree, that kills any chance of a real strategy.
Right. You can't build a youth pipeline. You can't build a winning culture. If the entire management structure gets reset after every single bad tournament,
The team ends up being managed by political cycles, not sporting ones.
you're just churning through people. And you lose all that institutional memory. You need people who can survive a bad AFCON to actually apply the lessons learned. Instead, they're just gone.
So what does this all mean? The system clearly allows an official to just make this sweeping reactive announcement on TV without any real follow-up. How do you even begin to fix that?
Well, the failure in Gabon was the lack of separation. So the core countermeasure has to be establishing clear, independent governance that separates political bodies from sports federations.
You need a firewall, a barrier between the executive power of the state and the strategic management of the team.
That's it, exactly. Institutional autonomy and, crucially, transparent funding. The federation has to have the structural independence to say, no, a minister can't just fire the coach on TV. They have to be the sole authority.
Okay, so let's try another hypothetical. Hypothetical example 2. Instead of the sports minister making that announcement,
Right. Instead of that, the National Football Federation as a separate, non-political entity is the only body that can conduct a performance review. That firewall protects the professional structure from those immediate political whims.
and the long-term goal isn't just winning the next game.
No, winning is fickle. The goal is building resilient, professional institutions where reviews are objective and not tied to, the patriotic sentiment of whoever is in power that day. As long as the Federation depends entirely on government money and political favor, it's always going to be vulnerable.
So this Gabon case, it really is a vivid real-time example of the pressure these governments are under, especially ones with, let's say, a precarious path to legitimacy.
They use national team success as validation, and they use failure as a chance to publicly perform their power through scapegoating.
Which brings us to the core tension.
Yeah.
Is the national team a professional industry that needs stable, long-term planning?
Or is it just a volatile political tool whose fate is tied to the rhetoric and survival of the state?
And the events in Gabon really showed that the second approach, treating the team as a tool for optics, just guarantees instability. It drives away talent, and ultimately it undermines the chance for any kind of sustained success.
Which leaves us with a final question for any nation wrestling with this. Can your national team ever achieve consistent world-class results until it's insulated from these reactive, high-stakes political forces that demand sacrifice instead of actual reform?
Yeah. The real loss here wasn't the AFCON game. It was the erosion of institutional credibility. When a governing body makes a decision on TV that it then has to silently scrub from the record. So what governing system do you think best balances that intense national passion with professional autonomy? Let us know.